Hi, I'm Peter. I'm sure that most of you have a cell phone in your pocket or laptop in your bag, and you're using those devices to be more connected with your friends, your family, and your work than ever before. And while most people think that's a great thing, there's a lot of negative consequences that we don't think about. My claim for you is that our use of new communication and information technology is negatively affecting our well-being. I would like to prove this to you by demonstrating that technology is making it harder to maintain a healthy balance of life and work and our personal lives, that multitasking is unproductive and unhealthy, and that technology is hurting our relationships. First, technology is making it harder to maintain a healthy balance of work and our personal lives. Because of email, people are in constant communication with their employers even when they're not in the office. More people are checking their email everywhere, on vacation and home. According to an article on Mail Online titled "You've Got More Mail," a recent survey found that the typical working day now lasts from 7:17 a.m. to 7:02 p.m. because employees are checking their work emails on their phones outside of office hours. This is essentially 3 more hours of work a day, and that's 3 hours less you have to spend with your family and relaxing. Also, according to a survey about working adults' email habits published on Statista.com, 57% check their work emails on family outings, 50% check their work email while still in bed, and 38% check their work email at the dinner table. This further shows that email is becoming a constant part of our lives and is taking away from our personal time. Not only are we so connected, but we're also being distracted by these things instead of them actually helping us be more productive. Multiple studies have shown that while at work, workers are spending as much as 2.5 hours a day working with email correspondence. And that's about 30% of the workday, and that's more time than they're spending face-to-face communicating with peers, which is where real productivity normally happens. Also, according to a study done by Kansas State University, between 60 and 80% of people's time on the internet at work has nothing to do with work. So we're more connected, but we're really not getting as much done. Furthermore, I'd like to show that multitasking is unproductive and unhealthy. Because we have so much going on, we often try to multitask to make up for lost time, but it's just not efficient. Julie Morgenstern, a productivity expert and best-selling author, says it's been scientifically demonstrated that the brain cannot effectively or efficiently switch between tasks, so you lose time. It takes 4 times longer to recognize new things, so you're not saving time. Multitasking actually costs time. You also lose time because you make mistakes. And I know this is definitely true for me. When I'm working on this research, I would be changing tasks, and then I'd get distracted, and I'd come back, and I wouldn't be getting as much done in a set period of time. Because we're looking at so much information, people often think that multitaskers are better at filtering information, but that's proved to not be true as well. Dr. Clifford Noss, a professor at Stanford University who conducted a study on multitasking, said, "I had thought that filtering information was a particular gift that high multitaskers had, but in fact, multitaskers are suckers for distraction and suckers for the irrelevant. And so the more irrelevant information they see, the more they're attracted to it." And I know that was definitely true for myself. As I'm reading these articles, they would have links to other articles, some of them related, some of them not. And I found myself looking at what happens when an astronaut wrings out a towel in space. And while that's fascinating, it wasn't productive to my task at hand, and it took me more time to get settled back in my research. Well, just the time lost is bad enough in itself. There's more frightening research that shows that multitasking is actually negatively affecting the way our brains work. We get addicted to multitasking. When we switch tasks or we receive notifications on our phones, our brains release dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that is associated with rewards and pleasures. Dopamine is the same neurotransmitter that's released when you use substances like cocaine and meth, which makes it highly addictive. Professor Daniel Anderson from the University of Massachusetts says, if you've grown up processing multiple media, that's exactly the mode you're going to fall into when you're put in that environment. You develop a need for that stimulation. And I know that's been true for myself. When I'm focusing on a single task for a long time, I can get really antsy and feel like I need to change and do something else, even though there's no reason for me to check my email. It just feels odd for me to be staring at the same article for more than, say, 20 minutes. And furthermore, spending time online can actually change the way your brain works. Newsweek says, in 2008, Gary Small, the head of UCLA's Memory and Aging Research Center, was the first to document the changes in the brain as a result of even modern internet use. He rounded up 24 people, half of them experienced web users, half of them newbies, and he passed each through a brain scanner. The difference was striking, with the web users displaying fundamentally altered prefrontal cortexes. But the real surprise was what happened next. The novices went away for a week, were asked to spend a total of 5 hours online, and then returned for another scan. The naive subjects had already re-wired their brains after just 5 hours online. And what makes this really shocking is the prefrontal cortex is what controls complex cognitive function, personality, expression, and decision-making and social behavior, which is a huge part of how we operate. And so the fact that the internet is changing that is slightly disturbing. And technology is also hurting our relationships. We're ignoring those around us in favor of our phones. According to research by Common Sense Media, 21% of teens say they wish their parents spend less time on their cell phones and other devices. Nearly half of teens say that sometimes they get frustrated with their friends for texting, surfing the internet, or checking their social network sites while they're hanging out together. Further, even more disturbing is a recent survey of mobile phone users by Telenav found that 33% would rather give up sex than their smartphones for a week. What's more, 28% said they go a week without seeing their significant other before forfeiting their iPhone. And that to me shows a grave distortion of our priorities when it comes to our relationships and our technology. And beyond just bad priorities, I think that technology can hurt the way we interact with others, because 80% of our communication is nonverbal, which means that when we're using electronic communication, 80% of that is lost. Now it's easier to miscommunicate, and we're not building trust, because trust is built when our nonverbal and verbal communications align. Also, according to research by, also because technology is so instant and our communications are instant, when we don't get instant responses and we see what other people are doing without us, it makes us easier to feel left out and ignored. According to research by Common Sense Media, 43% of social media users strongly or somewhat agree that they sometimes feel left out or excluded after seeing pictures of other people online together. That was true for me when I was home for spring break, and I was asking my friends, what should we do tonight, by sending out text messages. And they said, we're working on something, we'll let you know what's up, and then I never heard anything. But the next morning when I opened up Facebook, there they all were at my friend's house. And that made me feel left out, and that put stress on our relationship. So as a result of all this, I've decided that I should really reassess my technology habits, how I'm communicating with others, and how I'm spending my time in accomplishing tasks. I hope that you will similarly evaluate your habits, because our use of new technology in information and communication is negatively affecting our well-being.
All right, Peter, the claim is very clearly stated. There's an excellent layout of what the secondary structure is. I think you could give us a little bit more background to indicate some controversy on the subject. And the only other thing on organization that I thought was at all problematic is, as you went from point to point, you usually explain what the point was. I think a numerical signpost might help a little bit to kind of correspond with the preview that you had, just to help keep things structured so it doesn't seem like all the information runs together, because you do have a lot of information. Where are you? There. You do have a lot of information in your presentation, and it helps if it's broken up a little bit more. Now, like I said, casual listeners, they're the ones who are going to get lost. People who are paying attention, they'll be okay, but if I had time to talk about it, I would discuss it in detail, how we are not very good listeners, and most people aren't, so you got to help them a little bit more as a speaker. All right. Otherwise, I thought that you had excellent statistical information and testimony, some very good factual data. You're very consistent in citing your sources. There's a lot of information in the presentation. All of your inferences are clear, and the presentation of the argument is, I think, really solid. You have excellent audience contact. You're speaking to us directly. You seem to know what the argument is, and you're only having to look at the notes to get the statistic or the quote occasionally. For the most part, you're just talking to us, and that's exactly the way that people can be most effective as speakers. All right.